Drama.
Wouldn't that be funny if John Lynch came on and said, here's who we're taking?
Yes, it would be hilarious. It ain't gonna happen,
I'm tired of y'all guessing. Think about what we talk about. All right, we are going over to ESPN2. Get Up is next.
Good morning. It is time to get up with the week we've been waiting for. T-minus 3 days in counting. Have the Niners made their choice? We've got the latest. Meanwhile, the Patriots figure to be in the middle of most of it, including a huge trade involving a superstar player. We'll tell you exactly who. And once and for all, what will Dallas do to shake up the top 10 in pursuit of the one player everybody wants? Those are the questions. We've got the answers as we get up with you the week of the draft. Get Up on ESPN. Greeny in New York, delighted you are here. And look who's coming along for the ride. Getting up with us this morning, Diana Rossini, who is breaking stories. Mel Kiper, who is sugar rushing on pumpkin pie. Dominique Foxworth, who hates pumpkin pie. And Tim Hasselbeck, who I've never asked one way or the other. We'll get to the bottom of all of that, but we begin as we must. With the NFL draft, we are 3 days away, and all of the questions center around the quarterbacks. Is this the year the Patriots draft one? They haven't taken one in round one since 1993. But Cam Newton is currently scheduled to be their starter. They may look to add some help there. Meanwhile, 2 teams have already moved into the top 10 this year. Could we see more moving in? Atlanta, Detroit, Carolina, all possibly trading down as teams consider coming up for quarterbacks. And of course, all eyes are on San Francisco. The 49ers are picking third. Kyle Shanahan has never drafted a quarterback in the first round as a head coach. The assumption is they'll be taking Jimmy G's replacement. The question is who? This is how the top 10 of the NFL draft looks right now. It is, of course, subject to change. We'll get into all of that, but it does feel as though 4, 7, and 8 are likely spots for teams to move out. Meanwhile, Diana, the draft really does start at number 3. What do we know about where the 49ers are as far as making their decision?
Yeah, it certainly starts in San Francisco. And we know Kyle Shanahan he's really the star of this offense. He's not looking for a star quarterback. He's looking for a quarterback that works in his system, which is why this is such a hard decision for San Francisco as they continue to mull over, go over the information, watch the tape to make the call at quarterback. When we look back and they traded up, they had their eyes on Mac Jones. That's when all signs were pointing to Mac Jones. And it made so much sense. His accuracy, his strong pocket presence, his high football intellect. It almost screamed Kyle Shanahan and what he likes. But of course, we've seen more quarterbacks work out. We've seen more pro days, and they've done more homework on other guys. So now here the 49ers are on Monday, just a few days away after making a gigantic trade, perhaps one of the biggest trades that San Francisco has made in a draft in decades, and they are still making a decision here, Greeny.
It's remarkable when you think about it. Let me bring the crew in on this conversation here if I can, because I want to get Mel. Chrissy, if we can, let's get Mel in here. There we go. Mel Kiper. So you hear it. They're still making up their minds. What is your sense of this? If you are sitting there, you're watching all this play out. You've mocked Mac into that spot because that just seems to be the conventional wisdom. But what is your sense of where we stand right now at number 3?
Hard for me, Greeny, because you have ratings and you have mock drafts, and you got to put the both separately. So if you go from a rating standpoint, for me, it's Justin Fields. It's pretty obvious that's the pick, but that's not going to be the pick. You heard from the get-go, from the intel you have talking to teams, that it's going to be Mac Jones or Trey Lance. That's the decision, not Justin Fields. So I gave it like 70% Jones, 20% Lance, 10% Fields. And I would probably maintain that. I think when you go from 12 to 3, you better know who you want. If it's 2 guys and you have to figure it out, like Diana said, fine, great, I agree with that, no problem. So I'm kind of all over the place here, Greeny, because I would take Justin Fields. It would be easy for me, but you knew from the get-go it was going to be Jones probably, with Lance a possibility.
Dominique, what is your sense of this? We're 3 days away, and Diana's telling us they haven't made up their minds yet. What do you take away from that big picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think Diana is being a responsible reporter in this condition, but I think I'm starting to have to accept what everyone is saying as much as I don't want to, accept that Mac Jones is going to end up in San Francisco. But Diana said something interesting at the top, that they're looking for the quarterback that fits their system. And I could understand that as a rationale. And honestly, even though I don't agree with it, and I've seen Kyle Shanahan's system change depending on the quarterback, like I kind of respect the idea of them thumbing their nose at all of our analysis and saying, we know who we got. We'll find out if they're right or wrong at some point, but you have to trust your own analysis and not go on necessarily public opinion. While I am leaning towards public opinion, and I see the threat of Justin Fields in that offense as being much scarier than the threat of Mac Jones or even Trey Lance. I see that as much more intimidating than Mac Jones, but Kyle Shanahan's a slightly better football coach than I am.
Well,
Slightly.
yeah, and I get that. But so, Dominique, with that thought in mind, if I were to say back to you, Diana just said, and I think it's right, the star of Kyle Shanahan's offense is Kyle Shanahan, which is fine. But if that's the case, why in the world would you trade as much as they traded to go up and get a particular quarterback if, in theory, what you're saying is we can make this work with almost any quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's proven that they can make it work to some degree with almost any quarterback. They did it last year and the year before because Jimmy Garoppolo can't seem to stay healthy, and they've had success with guys like Nick Mullins. So I can understand Kyle Shanahan thinking that, but then why, to your point, why trade up to this point? You want to trade up right now? You're looking for someone who can break NFL defenses, not just operate your offense, but when your offense is broken down, he can make something happen. That hasn't been Jimmy Garoppolo, and we haven't seen any evidence that Mac Jones can do that either. Mac Jones has been in an offense that operated as it was supposed to because they're better than everybody. We've seen Justin Fields and we've seen Trey Lance, and you could even argue that we've seen Zach Wilson all kind of transcend what their offensive scheme puts out there.
What do you think of all this, Tim Hasselbeck?
Well, I think that's the only reason I think that it may end up being Mac Jones is because of the reporting. You know, from what I have watched, that's not what I see. I'm just being honest, and it sounds like, you know, there are other people, Mel, saying that, you know, he thinks Justin Fields is the second best quarterback. That's it. That is the only reason why I think that it ends up being Mac Jones. And I think this idea that they traded from 12 to 3, targeting Mac Jones, it's been hard for me to wrap my brain around that this entire time. Because I'm looking up there and thinking, really, are other people thinking of Mac Jones in that spot? I actually don't believe they are, which is why if they're targeting Mac Jones, like, why not trade with Detroit at 7? I'm going to believe it when I see it, Greeny, just because of what I've watched. And I think in some ways this is either the 49ers do an excellent job of putting information out there that maybe isn't correct, or, look, they just, as Dominique stated, said, look, in our scouting, this is what we truly believe about the position. It doesn't matter what Mel thinks or I think or Dominique thinks or you think. It matters what they think because they have to coach him. And maybe that's how they're approaching this.
Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I think what Tim said is exactly right. Nobody really knows except them, and they have to love their quarterback. It doesn't matter what rankings are out there, ratings are out there, and opinions are out there from other people. It doesn't matter. We've seen quarterbacks go in the third round in Joe Montana's case. Well, other quarterbacks went 3 and in the first round overall, and were not very good. So it doesn't really matter. It's who they love. And if they love Mac Jones, they think about Matt Ryan, Matt Schaub, Kirk Cousins. Now, Mike Shanahan had quarterbacks with more mobility, like John Elway, Steve Young. So you have to figure it all out. The Trey Lance's accuracy in those 6 games, under 57%, makes you wonder, is that the right guy? And if Justin Fields wasn't in the discussion initially when they moved up, if that intel is correct, you would go for what they want, Jones over Lance. So that's why with Wilson and obviously Lawrence gone. So that's why I think just when you look at it logically, based on what we know up until this point, without any inside information with the 49ers, Diana can speak to that, Mac Jones would make sense for all the things I just talked about.
And I believe, do I still have Diana? Let me get